Welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to helping business owners prepare for exit so you can maximize value and exit on your terms. This is the Exit Insights podcast presented by Succession Plus, and I'm Daryl Bates-Brownsword. Today, I'm talking to Andrew Bull. Andrew's the author of Monsters of Team Performance. So in the conversation, Andrew's going to share with us how team performance can impact the culture of your business and hold back productivity. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me on the show, Daryl. It's great to be here. And it's interesting that you mentioned productivity, because I also think if you're a business owner who's thinking about exiting their business, that there's something to be said about having the right team and culture in place inside your business as well. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
I'm sure we will, Andrew. So look, how did you end up like Monsters? Like, what's that all about? What's going on there?
Well, to be honest, I think business owners have too much to do, and reading another business book is something else to do. And we have to understand we're not only competing against another business book when we're trying to get people to connect with our ideas, we're also competing with Netflix or going for a walk or other things. So my idea is to make a book which is a bit different, a bit creative, and a bit engaging and really easy to get into. And that you can have a bit of fun with. So it's not just a really grey, boring business book. There's a bit of fun and just a different way of looking at these ideas, which hopefully will make it a bit more gettable for busy business owners.
Okay. So trying to engage a bit, combine a bit of entertainment in there. But I'm guessing there's a real serious side to the book. Team performance. I'm guessing the monsters are the things that hold back team performance and prevent teams, management teams, leadership teams, operational teams from working as effectively as they could be?
That's such a great question, and you're so right, because I think what I say in the book is our business is like a spaceship, the enterprise, right? We set our targets. We're going to go to that planet over there. That's what we want to achieve, and then when we get there, we're going to have a very successful company and we'll be ready to exit or to float it or whatever we want to do with it. Mm-hmm. But we become so consumed sometimes with the journey and all the problems which are exterior to our business and to the spaceship. So we think, oh, the reason the business isn't going as fast as it could is because of marketing or because of sales, or we don't have the right software. And sometimes we don't actually turn our gaze inwards and think, oh, actually, the reason we're going a bit slower is because we've got issues inside the spaceship, inside the enterprise, that are actually holding us back. And these can be really quite hard to see because, when you're in the forest, you can't see the woods for the trees. But they can make a huge difference. So, for example, the relationships between your team members could make a massive difference in how fast you can get through projects and get tasks finished, or how much you repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Because if your team don't have great relationships, for example, they might not be willing to share mistakes with each other because they're scared that if I tell you, oh, by the way, when I did this pitch last week to this client, it went wrong because I did this. If people don't share that kind of insight, well, the next time someone else in the office does the same pitch, there's a good chance they'll make the same mistake. So this where team performance and relationships becomes something that can really accelerate or impede the business.
Okay, so we're talking the cultural side, the soft issues, which are sometimes referred to as the hard issues, because they're a lot harder to deal with and a lot harder to see, which I think you're alluding to there. Andrew, how much of this have you taken from perhaps team sports and the sporting field? Did you see much crossover?
I think there is a crossover, because you can see how quickly a culture of a team can change once a strong leader comes into a team. It can really transform. You can have the same group of players, and if the right leader's there, who instills the right mindset, it can make a huge difference. And I think with teams, sports teams, it's so noticeable on the surface because you can see it on the pitch and we're in the results straight away. So there's definitely some crossover. The place where it really came to me in the first place, though, all these challenges, was during my time in the film industry, when you're working in really intense, complex environments, half construction site, half high-tech software, robots, actors, crews scattered all over the world. So you've got all these complex factors on whether your project's going to be a success or not. And you see all the time that a lot of the things that are dragging the performance down of the project is individuals, really, or the culture is dragging it down. Like, for example, blame culture is something that unfortunately rears its head quite a lot in the film industry when a project goes wrong, because there's so much money involved. But often things like blame culture don't actually help, because we just spend our time pointing fingers at each other rather than actually learning what we could all do better.
Yeah. Okay. So we talk about monsters. I'm guessing there's a number of monsters that you address.
That's right. There's 8 different monsters. So the blame blob would be one. We got something like called the Eternal Destroyer, Emoti Bomb, the Hangry Snargler, and so on.
Sounds like a bit of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe it'll get bought by Warner Brothers and get turned into a film one day. Who knows?
All righty. So how does someone who reads the book, what will they learn from the book to help them address or kill off or whatever we do with these monsters?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, first thing, you can learn really the deep role that a team plays in your business, which you may or may not be aware to some degree, and the difference that it can make to your business. I mean, some businesses in the UK, there's a survey done last year by the House of Commons Library. So that's, if you're outside the UK, you might not know that, but the House of Commons is our government, and it has its own library, which is independent of the politics. And they do a big survey amongst businesses. And in this big survey they did, it turns out that some companies earn 1.8 times more revenue than others. And so I go into this in the book, looking into why this is. And then I help people identify some of these challenges, stroke monsters within their business, which are going to be slowing down their business. And then I give action steps once you've identified that monster. So you can look at the book and go, oh, we're suffering from the blame blob. And you get the symptoms, you get to learn how to spot it, and the damage it causes. And then I'll give you action steps that you can actually take with your business so you can help to eliminate it and throw it out the spaceship and into a black hole. Get rid of it.
Okay, well, you talked about this blame blob. What are some of the things you can do?
Well, I think one thing you should be aware of is an overly competitive culture within a business. And that can be around money, or it could be around redundancy. I mean, right now, there's going to be a few companies looking at making people redundant because we're potentially going into a big downturn. But when you have those kind of things coming along, if you have too much intense competition, then it becomes kind of a rational choice for people to start pushing each other out the boat. And one way you can do that is by pointing fingers at each other. So there's lots of things like this we can do. Like once the leaders are aware of this, we can start thinking about how we address that and making sure people know that pointing fingers isn't going to ensure you get a big pay rise, a big promotion, or you get to stay in the business more than someone else.
Okay, and so we're talking about blame and covering our butts and protecting ourselves and pointing the finger elsewhere. I'm guessing there's an opposite side to blame. Like what immediately leaps to mind for me is a responsibility. If the opposite of laying blame is taking responsibility, is that what we're exploring?
Yeah, that's it. That I give for each of the monsters, I give a number of action steps and a number of reasons behind them, and definitely this shirking of individual responsibility is a cause of it. And there's something that's actually called the victim drama triangle, which many people in life go into, a bit like the Bermuda Triangle, but to do with personal responsibility. And when people are suffering from this victim drama triangle, they see themselves as victims. And I don't mean a victim of crime. I mean a victim of, say, a situation in an office and so on, where they see that everything is put upon them. They see other people as the oppressors and other people as the heroes, which basically lets them step away from taking any responsibility for the situation, but it doesn't help anyone. So what we can do is actually educate our teams about the negative consequences of thinking like this, and helping people actually be the protagonist in their own life and at work, because then we can start getting rid of this whole concept of who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who needs to be a superhero, and people can start helping themselves and start helping the business more as well.
So we're looking at the drama triangle, and what you say, there was a victim, it's something I've seen before, actually. So it's the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll jump into all three roles, and depending on the context of the situation will depend on the role we play. Is that the one?
Yeah. I mean, many people will try and occupy the role of victim and be like, oh, I can't save myself, or, everything is thrust upon me. The reason I can't achieve this in life is because of this. And that will happen to a smaller or lesser degree, but you'll have that in work. I mean, it's something that I fell into when I was younger, thinking like that, thinking like, oh, people are doing this stuff to me, but it just becomes a barrier to change and moving forward. Because if you occupy that place of victim, then what you're saying is, I have no power and no control over what happens to me in life. So it's a very negative position to be in. Whereas if you go, actually, no, I do have control, and these are things I can do and how I can be productive. You've got a chance to actually make things better for you and for everyone.
Okay, so we've got this victim mindset, which it precludes us from taking responsibility because I'm not at fault. It's always someone else's fault. How do we get out of that? We want to look on the positive side. We want some high energy. We want to create a business that's moving forward and thriving and got great energy. How do we just park that to one side and move forward?
Well, I think education is the first thing. Awareness breeds change. First of all, we need to make people aware of these issues. And obviously this is a tricky thing to do, because you can't go into an office and point fingers at people and go, oh, you've got a victim mindset because you're into finger pointing, right? So it's best to have like a general workshop or seminar company wide, and talk about these issues in a very honest and mature way, and relate to people's stories who are outside the business about how they've changed. And by having these positive role models come in and show how there's different ways to think about things which are more positive and proactive, we can actually start to see a change. But leadership have a key role to play in this. If the people at the very top point fingers and do this whole persecution thing, they play along with that triangle, then it's going to lead the whole culture down that route. Whereas if the leadership aren't like that and set that positive example and help to kind of stamp out that kind of thinking, then that can make a big difference. I mean, another thing you can do is have a really open and transparent culture, because what comes with blame is gossip, right? Oh, Sandra did this, Tony did that. So you get that. Whereas if you have just honest openness and feedback around everything, you start to kill all of that stuff off. So everything starts being more out in the open. And in fact, next time something goes wrong in a project, rather than point fingers and not learn anything, what a company should do is start having learning moments within the business. So say maybe you do go to a pitch and it goes wrong, rather than people going like, oh, well, Tony, you did a terrible job with the graphics, or whatever reason you think it is. No, turn it into a learning moment and work out how you can come back stronger the next time, and do it as a team.
So you mentioned there that the leadership have a strong role to play. I think I've heard someone best describe it, one that I related to and thought, is the culture of every business is like the solar system, and the owners are like the sun. Everything radiates out and starts from the sun, and that's culture, that's behaviors, that's the values, that's the work ethic, I guess. It's the style of things, all starts from the sun and radiates out from there. And the further away you get from the sun, the less intense the influence is from the sun, or the energy of the leaders. Is that what we're talking about here?
I think that's true to a certain extent. I think everyone has an opportunity in an organization to lead from wherever you are within the business. But yeah, senior leaders, due to their visibility, have a key role to play.
Okay, so how can they have that positive impact that we're looking for in the workforce?
Well, I think leaders should first look at leveling up their own soft skills, their own ability to listen, to communicate, to delegate, to regulate their emotions, to be that positive example, and also to start looking for the good in people around them and start thinking positively of the people around them, because expectations are extremely powerful.
Yeah.
If someone comes into my office and I have a negative expectation of them, say I have a new sales team member start, and the last couple of salespeople I've hired have not really cared about the company. They just want to come in, hit the phones, hit their targets, and then go again. Then maybe when this new person starts, don't bother asking them to any company-wide meetings or anything, because I've already got this negative expectation of them. And this person who might have been enthused about being more involved in the company actually becomes less and less enthused, and they become that kind of, half bothered member that I expected in the first place. Whereas if we flip it around and we go, no, this time the salesperson is going to be really involved, and I'm going to support them being really involved by asking them along, engaging with them, giving them all the resources they need, then we start creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of how people are going to perform in our business.
So if we're taking this on board, we're listening to what you've got to say, and we're going, look, I need to change my attitude. I need to change some of the behaviors and how I see the world, and perhaps remove some of the filters with how I'm seeing things. How long does this change take to come into effect and people start experiencing me different as a leader?
You can wake up tomorrow morning with a different mindset, and the change begins then. The change could begin as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, that instead of looking at things with a critical eye and always finding the negative and like the 5 worst things that someone's done today, you find the 5 best things that they've done today. And then that ripples across your whole team, with everyone starting to look for the positive and good within each other and within the team. So you can start right now. There's not a perfect moment. There's not. And I think this is a big thing that stops us taking action. We're like, do you know what? I've got so much on this quarter, all these projects to deliver, and then I'm going to Spain for 3 weeks. And then maybe when I come back from that, I'll start thinking about leadership and team training. And then it never happens. Just start small and just start now, and just build bit by bit. Don't wait for that perfect moment. People can start right now.
And that's the leaders starting in their mind. How long before the people around them experience and notice the change, or do we have to actually tell them?
I think if you have a transformed mindset, it should be noticeable pretty quickly. I think the fact that people are listening to this podcast will mean they already have quite a strong, open mindset, but maybe they'll be a little bit hesitant about trying things. But once you actually start doing it, you can make huge transformations very quickly. And if you want people to notice, obviously that's what you need to do, because just small, tiny steps aren't going to be visible. Whereas, changing your perspective on work that's put in at your company, say people put in projects for you to check out and look at, and in the past you've been probably too critical about them and too much of a perfectionist. If you can just go, well, actually, this isn't actually helping. And also it's not helping our bottom line either. And it's not making my team happy. If I can just be a little bit more loving in a way about it, a bit more positive and embracing of things which are different that I wouldn't have done the same, then your team are going to start noticing that pretty quickly and start feeling a lot better about themselves as well.
Right. Yeah. I can see, Andrew, I can see or imagine in my mind's eye that business owners are listening to this and going, yeah, that's all well and good, but why do I want to do this? I'm preparing my business for exit. I want to get my business exit ready. In 3 years, I'm out of here. I'm selling the business. What difference does it make to them on their bottom line? You touched on it. You said it influences the bottom line. But in terms of business valuation, what if I'm the business owner? What's in it for me?
Well, does someone coming into a business want to buy a business if it always depends on the business owner being present and everything has to go through them? Or if a couple of key staff members left because they got a better offer because they didn't enjoy the culture of the business? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. And I think if people take a moment to reflect, they'll realize, actually, if you don't have a business which is strong throughout, with everyone being strong at a level and not just dependent on a couple of key people, then it's not really a strong business, not really a robust business, and it's not really a scalable business either. Whereas if you take the mindset of, you know what, we can actually level up all our people and make them stronger, you can make a stronger, more robust business. And also, if you do that, you can also start taking a step back from it now before you sell it. Right. A lot of people are locked inside their businesses. They feel like they have to be there the whole time because they feel like their team can't do it and they've got to be there to manage it the whole time. But if you level up your team, give them more responsibility and the tools to work better as a team, then you can actually take a step back and start having more of a life even before you sell your business.
Right. So are we saying that if we focus on these monsters, the 8 monsters, we start chipping away and getting rid of them, the impact on the business will be that we'll have a workforce that are working together more cohesively as a team, which is likely to have influence or impact on the productivity, potentially the amount of rework, I guess, potentially staff turnover. We'll have staff stay around longer and therefore we'll be more efficient as a whole. We'll have a higher level of satisfaction in the workforce, which means people are quite happier being there, which influences on work ethic, and just the style of place, the work environment that it is, which will impact on for the business owner. They'll go, hey, look, we've got a stable workforce, we've got happy clients, we've got happy staff. The business tends to be worth more, or at the very least, easier and more attractive to sell, or even hand on to the employee ownership as an EOT could be an example. The employees be engaged where they want to take it on and take the business to the next level, and because they feel that there's something special about this business through or because of the culture. Is that the type of thing we're talking about?
Yes, you've nailed it. Yeah, what a great summary. And I think there is something so powerful of putting the keys of your business in the hands of many of your team members and inviting them into the front seat, and helping them drive the business forward to the next stage of success. And I've worked with business owners who've done this, who are tired of doing everything themselves and making all the decisions. And what they realized is by empowering their team members, they can actually move their business in a new, faster direction than they could with their old way of doing things.
Yeah. So it sounds, we talked earlier in the conversation around the correlation to high-performing team sports. And the picture that comes to mind is when we train regularly in our roles in that sporting environment, that sporting venue, we just develop that sense of trust, awareness of the person there performing their role right behind us, right next to us, right in front of us, whatever. And we just have a sense, develop an intuition or a sixth sense of just knowing that person is there, ready for the handoff. And I see it best, in rugby is the image I've got in my mind when the player is being tackled and they somehow magically pass the ball out of an impossible situation, knowing that their teammates there already coming through full speed, charging straight through the opposition, magic result, try. Now that doesn't happen by chance. And I guess what you're proposing here is something similar in the work environment.
That's right. To work at such a high level, you've got to have great relationships with your fellow team members and high levels of trust with them. And also, I think post-pandemic, we're living in what I call this brave new world, where everything is permanently changing. Change seems to be accelerating, unpredictable, in all different areas. So companies need to be more adaptable to these changes. We've got to deal with things like new wealth, satisfying people's wants for a work-life balance and maybe doing 4 days a week. We've got geopolitical issues. We've got the fragmentation of the workplace, all these pressures and tensions in this brave new world. And I think teams and businesses need to be more agile and flexible to deal with that, a bit like a rugby player who has to adapt quickly to a situation. And I think unless your team have a really strong mindset and are trained really well like that rugby player, they're not going to be able to deal with all that adversity as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There are different pressures on owners and workers. We've got a situation where there's low unemployment. There's also, people wanting to work less, as you suggest, competing pressures. Generationally, people aren't necessarily staying with the one organization. So it's becoming a great battle to attract people to join your business. So we want to create not only great commercial reasons to be there for them in terms of professional growth and good salary and income, etc., but it's got to be a place where they want to be and something they want to be part of. And I guess that's related in the purpose-driven business as well, what people are referring to as purpose-driven businesses, all part of why do I want to be part of this organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. 59% of people are unhappy at work.
That many.
So if you want to compete for talent, you need to keep that percentage in mind, because that means if you're not someone who is consciously making their business a better culture, a more enjoyable place to work, then other people are going to be. And over time, you'll eventually lose your top performers to those better businesses, because why wouldn't you move to a better business? People will.
And it's always the good people who leave first.
That's right, because they'll get snapped up, won't they?
Andrew, we've covered a stack today, and it's great to have a conversation exploring the cultural side, because we always like to think you got to get the cultural and commercial aspects in balance to get a thriving, sustainable business over the long term. From your perspective, what's the key message that you want listeners to take away from our conversation today?
My key message is this, that if you want your business to thrive over the decades to come, it's time to change your approach to team and culture, and to take it to the next level, and to take this moment, this post-COVID crazy time, as a moment to really transform how your team and culture works together and make your team stronger, so you can embrace the coming years as a stronger, healthier team.
Some powerful insights there, Andrew. Thanks for sharing with us today.
That's welcome. I'll just show my book quickly, because I haven't showed the cover, but there you go. Monsters of Team Performance.
Available on Amazon?
It's available at my website, InterstellarWay.Life.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Daryl.